You know what's strange? You can be surrounded by people, friends, coworkers, even family, and still feel slightly misplaced. Not rejected, not excluded. Just half a step out of sync. Like everyone else received a social script you somehow missed. If you've ever felt like you don't fully belong anywhere, not completely at work, not completely with old friends, not completely online, not even completely in your own generation, this is probably about you. You're not antisocial. You're not cold. If anything, you're deeply observant. You read the room quickly. You adapt. You can blend in almost anywhere. And yet, internally, you still feel like you're hovering at the edges. On the surface, it might seem like it's just confidence, or that you haven't found your people yet. That's the explanation most people settle on. But that's rarely the full story. Because this feeling isn't just about other people, it's about how your nervous system learned to position you socially. This is where it becomes slightly uncomfortable. Sometimes feeling like you don't belong isn't about rejection, it's about hyper-attunement. You became very good at scanning, adjusting, shifting yourself subtly depending on who you're with, and when you do that long enough, you start to feel like there isn't a solid you underneath it, and that can sting. But this doesn't mean you're broken. It's actually a very human response. Many people who grew up during rapid cultural shifts, especially those who straddled the offline and online world, developed this pattern. You probably noticed this about yourself. You can connect with almost anyone one-on-one, you understand different perspectives easily, you've learned to translate yourself depending on the group. But afterward, you sometimes feel strangely untethered, like you performed a version of yourself that was accurate, but incomplete. We don't talk enough about what it was like growing up during the social media transition. You likely remember a childhood that was partly analog. Awkward phases weren't permanently documented, friend groups were smaller, identity was more local. Then, suddenly, comparison became global. Social norms started shifting faster than anyone could metabolize. Trends, politics, humor, identity language, everything accelerated. Your brain had to adapt to constant social recalibration, and adaptation is what it did. When environments change quickly, the nervous system prioritizes flexibility. It scans for cues, it adjusts behavior to minimize friction. Psychologists sometimes describe this as social attunement or high self-monitoring, the ability to read expectations and modify yourself accordingly. That skill is powerful. It makes you socially intelligent. But here's the part people rarely mention. If you overuse adaptation, belonging starts to feel conditional. You might find yourself thinking, which version of me fits here? That question becomes automatic, and over time, the gap between who you are privately and who you are socially can widen just enough to create that quiet displacement. You know the feeling, laughing at a joke that doesn't quite land for you, softening an opinion because it feels easier, withholding enthusiasm because it might be too much. None of this feels dramatic at the moment. It's subtle, micro adjustments, but they accumulate. Your brain is trying to keep you socially safe. It's doing what it learned works. There's actually a psychological concept related to this, identity diffusion. Not in a clinical sense, just in the everyday sense of your identity becoming more fluid than anchored. When you're constantly adapting, your sense of self can start to feel situational instead of stable. And that can feel exhausting. Like being a Wi-Fi signal that's always searching for the strongest network. That's the metaphor. You're not disconnected. You're just constantly scanning. But here's where it becomes complicated. The same sensitivity that makes you perceptive can also make you hesitant. You might hold back parts of yourself before anyone has actually rejected them. You might assume misalignment before giving people the chance to meet the unedited version of you. This is the uncomfortable part. Sometimes the feeling of not belonging isn't only something happening to you. It's something you're preemptively protecting yourself from. Let that sink in. That doesn't mean you're causing it. It means your brain is trying to reduce risk, especially if you grew up during economic uncertainty, cultural polarization, or digital comparison loops that subtly trained you to evaluate yourself constantly. The environment shapes wiring. When the culture rewards likability, adaptability, and curated identity, your nervous system learns to optimize for it. And you did. You probably became the mediator in groups, the flexible friend, the one who can see both sides, the one who doesn't make things harder. That's a strength. But there's a difference between adaptability and invisibility. Solitude and loneliness get confused in a similar way. Here's the distinction. Solitude feels chosen. Loneliness feels imposed. One simple rule of thumb: if you feel restored after time alone, that's solitude. If you feel smaller or more doubtful afterward, that's loneliness. Imagine this. You spend a Friday night by yourself, reading or watching something thoughtful. You feel calm, centered. That's solitude. Now imagine leaving a social gathering where you were technically included but slightly edited. You get home and feel vaguely hollow. That's the difference. Your trait isn't isolation. It's sensitivity to alignment. And sensitivity is not a flaw. It only becomes limiting when adaptation overrides authenticity so often that you forget what unfiltered presence feels like. You probably notice that with certain rare people, the feeling disappears. Conversations feel slower, you don't monitor yourself as much, your body relaxes. That tells you something important. Your system knows what belonging feels like. It just doesn't assume it's guaranteed. And given the world you grew up in, that makes sense. You navigated a time where identities were fluid, norms were unstable, and comparison was constant. You learned to be flexible because rigidity would have felt socially dangerous. Your brain adapted. That's human. It can start to cost you when flexibility turns into self-erasure, when every room feels like a test, when you're always calibrating instead of inhabiting. But the fact that you're aware of this pattern already says something. You're reflective. You're not numb to your own experience. And that awareness creates a kind of quiet anchor. Maybe belonging for you was never about finding one perfect group. Maybe it's about recognizing that your adaptability is real. And so is the part of you that doesn't want to disappear. You're not behind. You're not socially defective. You're someone who learned to survive rapid change by becoming perceptive. That perception just needs room to coexist with steadiness. And steadiness doesn't mean rigidity. It just means you don't have to earn space in every room by shrinking. If this feels familiar, I'd be curious how it shows up for you. You're not alone in that half-step out of sync feeling. If you're interested in more reflections like this, different topic, same depth, there are more videos waiting for you here. Until next time.